So it was December last year when, in a space of 7 days, I time traveled from looking at the excavations, the Harappan excavations at Lothal, to the V&A Museum in London. In Lothal, I was really looking at that terracotta hand spine, used to spin yarn, and this was 3,500 years ago. It was there in the museum. And at V&A, I was looking at the most beautiful and the most legendary Indian muslins, the transparency of the muslins. I was looking at it, and it just reminded me what we once had and what we have lost. Up until just 150 years ago, we inspired the world. We were the creative capital of the world. Today, we are nothing but a factory to the world. We are negotiating for the last cent. I sincerely believe that in order to regain that place of pride, we need to look back and to learn from our past. So to begin, let's just take a quick look at just a couple of examples of the many things that we have lost. We had a very rich variety of regional and very, very diverse indigenous cotton. And this indigenous cotton was able to produce different kinds of cloth, very, very distinctive cloth. Okay? At the time of the independence, this indigenous Desi cotton variety contributed to 98% of our cotton cultivation. Today, it's less than 2%. Okay, so main reason, justifiable. That Desi cotton has very short staple, the fiber length is too small for it to be spun industrially. Okay, so you needed to grow hybrid varieties and the American varieties that came in, and Desi cotton, we lost it. I can safely say that we have destroyed the basic raw material that permitted us to produce yarns and fabrics that nobody else in the world could or can. Another example, the indigo dye. Do you know the term indigo comes from Indian roots, and it literally meant Indian ink, or simply Indian. This is how integral this mystic and this royal color was to our country. We lost it. We lost it, of course, to the German chemical version, which, of course, was much, much cheaper. But thankfully, while we've lost some, we still have plenty of very, very unique creative equity that all of us can harness and we can rebuild on. We have in India what I call an archipelago of regional and diverse excellence of craftsmanship. And more importantly, we have a human value chain that is unique to the world. India, honestly, is one of those very few remaining countries in the world that can say that the human value chain is still alive. Okay? Today we have our brain power, that is driving some of the top iconic companies in the world, Microsoft, Google, MasterCard, Pepsi, etc., etc. Okay? So we've shown to the world what we can do with our mind. Okay? It's time to show to the world what we can do when our mind and our hands come together. And honestly, the time is now. Why do I say that? First of all, because in this world of absolutely indiscreet and unthoughtful consumption, there is emerging a desire and a genuine need for conscious and mindful products. Recently, I got reminded of what the term consumption means. It means the act of consuming as by use, decay, or destruction. A consumer, in other words, is the one who destroys a product by using it. It must have taken a very, very far-sighted economist to have coined this term, because today we literally see that happen even with the clothes we wear. It's like we buy clothes not to wear them, but to destroy them. But in this midst of excesses, thankfully, we are also seeing an increasing number of customers that are revolting against this notion. I believe that this movement today is still in its nascent stages. And this is the moment for honest, transparent offerings now. Indian entrepreneurs need to wake up to the knocking of this opportunity. But there is another, a very, very exciting reason why I believe the time is now. It is the young generation right there, that is best equipped to harness this unique value chain, the human chain in India. Two reasons. Firstly, because this generation has the privilege and the opportunity to be thinking with both the left side and the right side of the brain. My generation, our generation really, we were brainwashed to think rationally and take rational jobs. Very few of us really ventured or veered too far away from the middle path. On the contrary, the 30-year-olds today have gone to some of the finest schools in the world. Their aesthetics are far more evolved. They have lived, they've seen the global customers' lives very, very closely, and they are very curious about the Indian heritage. This generation has a more holistic view of the whole value chain. It pays attention to the interests of the weaver, but understands that those interests can only be served if everyone in the value chain, including the customers, are taken care of. Here, I would like to offer this generation three messages. First, if you have not paid attention to your history lessons, start now. History is a waste if you believe that time is a linear vector. What is past is never going to be relevant again. Well, this is a false notion. We know history has a habit of repeating itself, but only the bad things come back by themselves. Good things need a good grasp of what happened when it did. Like everyone, I have grown up hearing and believing that India was once Sone ki chidiya. Up until recently, I never questioned why. Why was India Sone ki chidiya? How did that happen? Oh, when was it? And more importantly, what happened then? How did we lose it all? Let's go back to the example of cotton. All of us know about charkha. It is still seen as a romantic notion of Swadeshi, but actually it stares at us as a stark reminder of what is broken in an otherwise wonderful supply chain. We actually need a cost-effective and sensitive technology that can take that very, very short staple of the desi cotton and is able to spin it into yarn. We've spent decades into finding new kinds of cotton seeds and BT and hybrid, but we haven't spent any time in trying to take the desi cotton variety which grows organically. The farmer is much happier growing that. Okay? But it can't be spun into yarn except by hand. So it's industrially, it is economically not feasible. This is the link that is broken. If we are able to spin that into yarn, it can only be woven on the gentleness of a hand loom. And what it delivers is unique. And once this link is reestablished, the economic value chain will be active again. And handlooms will be able to weave unique cloth And at that point in time, the price comparisons with power loom will not matter. Second message, artisans are designers. And designers need to be artisans. We forget both. And this is another very, very big clue from our social and economic history. In the past, societies were very, very interconnected. So the artisans knew intimately who their customer is going to be because they could see that customer. So it was very easy for them to design and produce the products for them. But this link got broken. As the distance between the artisan and customer increased, the customer became invisible to the artisan. Okay? What happened then? The knowledge and the design understanding of that artisan got frozen in time at the moment when he knew that customer. So this is the reason why today we see people producing the same thing they did 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Because that's all they know. Today we say to the artisans, please make for someone you will never see. And by the way, here's the design that you will produce for her. And by the way, please stay where you are. In the conditions you're living in today, we will pay you just enough to keep you there. He has today no context of the final end use of the product. Creative capital cannot be built with this fractured value chain. And my last message to the generation, customers need intelligible communication. Communication they can understand. We react to what we see, and more importantly, we react to what we understand. If I take the example of fast fashion, they have gained a lot of currency, big trend. Why? Because it sends out two very simple messages, and those messages touch both sides of our brain, the left and the right. To the right side, it says, hey, this is a very trending jacket. And to the left side, it says, it's cheap. Easy. You don't need anything else to. But our task is to make the customers want to learn more about human products. And like fast fashion does, it should address both the emotional and the rational sides of the brain. But it is, unfortunately, the rational side of this value chain is very, very hard to comprehend. I know I'm standing in a dry state, but I would still like to draw a parallel to wine. I'm not promoting alcohol consumption here. I've been referring to wine a lot. While wine is naturally an emotional product, it is very hard for a customer to distinguish one wine from another and put a value to the different tastes. It takes a very highly developed sense of aesthetics to be able to do that. So wine drinkers, therefore, start from the bottom of the knowledge pyramid and then slowly climb up the ladder. So at the beginning, you buy something that someone else has told you about, and then you begin to find your own favorite grapes, your own nirvana a little bit, but you still need help to learn more. But the beauty is that as you know more, your interest in knowing even more increases. So what helps them make this journey? It's a very, very little thing. It's the label on the bottle. The label carries so much information that if you begin to comprehend it fully, you can almost feel the taste of the wine on your palate without even opening the bottle. How does this happen? They are able to give transparently the entire provenance of wine, the grape types, the climate, how much rainfall actually happened, how the wine was made, which tract of land, etc., etc. The lesson to learn for anything humanly produced, natural, organic, and made by hand, they are inherently touching your emotions. But it's not good enough for me to say, this jacket, which is true by the way, has not seen a machine in the entire process. But is it enough for me to want to buy this? There's enough emotion in this jacket. What I need to know is, why is this jacket a better product? And how is it different? Okay, so I'm recommending, which doesn't exist, is that actually learn something from wine to clearly say all the details that has gone in. It will begin to talk to the customers, and they will begin to appreciate why a product is better, why this functions better. It is not good enough to say, oh, I feel pity for the artisan, let me buy this. And I talk to you all as customers. You are essential stakeholders. You have to make the first step. And that first step is really getting curious, knowing about the products that you are buying and wearing and eating. Okay, ask the questions. Be conscious, be mindful. Okay. So to conclude, I would leave everyone who's listening to me, either in this room or otherwise, to ask themselves this question. Do you want to be a consumer who's happy to kill 10 dresses, or a customer who for the same cost will live with 5? Thank you very much. Jai Hind.